Hey, everybody.
Hey, guys.
We are here with Don Willi and Enchantment of Eternity, and later on, Akton Tomko to run through our top 10 favorite 80s movies. So, this is a video I've been really excited about for a long time. And it was actually, even though I conceived of this, I don't know, like 2 months ago, when I finally got ready to make the list, it was really hard. So, I'm sure you guys had as much difficulty as we did. Why don't you introduce yourselves real fast?
Hey, what's
Don,
going on, everybody? This is Don Willi, and I'm so glad to be here with my friends. You know, we do collaborations every once in a while, and you can find me on my channel. Pretty sure the link will be down below, and if not there, then I'm with the Hypes Watch. So thanks for having me on, Josh and Anna.
And Mark?
Yeah, hi. So it's Mark from Enchantment of Eternity. If you don't know my channel, it's Enchantment of Eternity. Do all sorts of reviews and we've done like sort of a lot. I love doing top 10 videos. So I do a lot of top 10 videos. So I'm excited to do top 10 80s movies. I haven't done this one yet. So yeah, glad to be here.
So the way this is going to go, we're going to go alphabetical order. So right now, Don is going to go first. But if Akton jumps in, he's going to convert to first. Well, like say we get to 7 before Akton gets here, he'll go 10, 9, 8, and then his 7, and we'll start fresh, regular with Akton going first. Hope that made sense. It made sense to me. All right, Don, you first. What is your 10?
Okay, man, you did not make this an enviable task whatsoever. I've watched a lot of movies in the 80s, and just so everybody out there knows, I'm only looking at movies that I actually saw in the 80s, not 80s movies that I watched later on. So my number 10 is going to be RoboCop. This was one of the most violent movies I had ever seen at the time when it came out. And man, I like the scene, and spoilers, 30 years late, if you haven't seen it, but the scene where Alex Murphy is being shot up by the criminals before he becomes RoboCop, to me is still one of the most brutal scenes ever. But I mean, look, RoboCop was awesome, and at the end of the day, I'd buy that for $1.
RoboCop almost broke my top 10. I almost put it in there, and then I was like, oh no, this one's got to be 10. So it barely is. I would put that at 11 actually on my list. And like you said, it's just one of the most beautifully, gratuitously violent movies of all time. When Murphy got shot up, and then was it RoboCop 1 or 2 where the guy fell into like the radioactive waste and he was melting, and then got hit by the car? Was that 1 or 2?
That was one. That was one.
That's one of my favorite scenes in all of movies ever.
Oh man, that movie was crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to say I hadn't actually considered this one for my top 10, but it's a good movie. I definitely will agree with that. I think I liked this a lot better when I was a teenager. I think when I matured a bit more, it didn't hold up as well for me because it is a bit silly and gratuitous, but I still like it. I still think it works well. It's got a lot of good actors in it, like Ronnie Cox and that guy from that 70s show. What's his name? Kurtwood Smith. Yeah. So it was a fun movie. I enjoyed it. Definitely better than any of the reboots or sequels, which were crap. But the first one was good. Yes.
Okay, Mark, what is your 10?
10, and thanks for this format, Josh. So Don can't ruin it for me this time. My 10 is Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. Yeah, I absolutely love this movie. I remember seeing it in the theaters when I was a kid. It was actually the first Star Trek thing I've ever seen, because before I was like, oh, Star Trek's dumb, that's boring. And then when I saw this, I laughed my head off. And then later on, it would become, I learned more of the context. It's actually like a sequel it concludes the 2 previous films, and they make like a little trilogy. So it works really well that way as a continuation of the sci-fi story, but at the same time, a very funny comedy. So it's always been one of my personal favorites.
You know, I think Star Trek 4 was the first Star Trek I ever saw as well. And I remember checking it out of the library probably at least 30 times. I had to warn that videotape out. And did I show you Star Trek 4? I think I did. The one with the whales?
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. I've seen that one.
Yeah. Anna's pretty new to Star Trek, actually. Well, new to old Star Trek.
New to old Star Trek. Like, I grew up watching the Next Gen and Enterprise and
DS9.
Deep Space Nine. Like, my dad and I watched those 3. I've probably seen every single episode of those multiple times. But, like, old Star Trek, I hadn't seen any of the movies, any of the original shows. So, like, I'm catching up on that now.
Yeah, and the thing is that so many people who aren't familiar with Star Trek, who can't like even tell Star Trek or Star Wars apart, who barely know anything about it. As soon as you say, "Oh, it's the one with the whales," like, "Oh, I know that one. I've seen that one." It was such a popular one.
I want to say hi to Timo real fast, who's in the chat. Hey, it has been too long. It has. Okay, so I think you're next.
Turn? All right.
Hold on. Real quick, I just want to say, look, you guys know how I feel about this movie. That's where I'm gonna leave it.
Okay, I see. Wait, I see. Akton just jumped in. So if he's there, we'll go ahead and let Akton do his 10.
All right, I'm here. Yeah, sorry, I had to restart my whole computer, and it took forever. So am I doing my 10 now?
We're just on number 10. We've just started.
Okay. Did you guys do yours?
Don and Mark have done theirs. We'll let you do yours, and then Anna will do hers, and we'll do mine, and then you'll do number 9.
Okay. Can I ask what Mark and Don did for their number 10?
Mine was Star Trek 4: The Voyage Home.
Oh, I'm guessing that wasn't Don Willi's.
You would be correct, sir. Definitely not my number 10. No, my number 10 was RoboCop.
RoboCop. All right, cool. Okay, so my number 10. I decided to go a little bit off the reservation because, frankly, most of my top 10 is kind of boring. It's kind of what you would expect sci-fi geek who grew up in the 80s to put in his top 10. But so I went with a comedy that I used to watch a lot when I was a kid, and I haven't seen it in probably 25, 30 years. So if I watch it now, I might go, well, this is a awful movie. It's terrible. But since I loved it when I was a kid, decided to be fun to put it on my list. And that would be Real Genius with Val Kilmer, a young Val Kilmer, possibly one of his first movies. I can't remember if that was before Top Secret or but it was early in his career. And I just always loved the ending. And yes, I'm going to spoil the ending, but it's a 32-year-old movie and it's a silly comedy. But with the popcorn fills up the guy's house, the Jiffy Pop popcorn, and they're playing Everybody Wants to Rule the World. That was just a classic. I watched it a million times on VHS tape back in the day. If I watch it now, it would probably be terrible. But I'm going purely on nostalgia, as I am for some of these movies on my list. Pure nostalgia. So that is my number 10.
I think I've only seen that movie one time, and I caught it on like network television on a Saturday.
And I've never seen it.
It was a good movie. I really liked it. Val Kilmer was fantastic in it.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't even think I've heard of this movie before.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Yeah, Mark and I and our other brother, we had a bunch of these movies on VHS tape. This would be true of some of the other movies that are on the list that we just watched hundreds of times. And this, I don't know if you remember this one, Mark. You might have been a little younger, but
I remember. Yeah, I was much younger at the time. So I do remember it slightly, but I get it slightly mixed up and confused with Weird Science in my head because
they are similar kind of movies. Yeah, Weird Science and Real Genius were kind of similar. Real Genius I thought was better, but
I don't remember Real Genius very well. But yeah. Kind of.
Yeah, there was the ending where there's Jiffy Pop popcorn going everywhere, and they're playing "Everyone Wants to Rule the World" by Tears.
Yeah,
Tears.
that I remember. That's probably the only thing I remember about the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
It's really easy to forget that Val Kilmer, when he first got his start, was basically a comedic actor.
yeah, he was his first few movies there.
Forgot about that after
Yeah.
Batman. All right. I think we'll move on to Anna.
Okay, my number 10 is The Outsiders.
Yeah.
I loved that movie, but of course, I didn't pick stuff I watched in the 80s because I don't remember what I watched in the 80s. I was like 6 in 1990, so
Yeah.
I just picked stuff from the 80s, and I remember loving The Outsiders.
Messed me up so bad. Well, any movie that Matt Dillon was in the 80s, I think he died horribly at the end of every single one of them. Like, he had the same death in every movie, and every single time it really messed me up.
The Outsiders. I'm sorry. I just, like, for some reason I have problems with a guy named Ponyboy. That is just like the worst name ever. Like, Ponyboy. Just think about it. It's just like the worst name ever for anybody.
That's a whole other story there, is
Yeah.
how he got the nickname Ponyboy.
This is actually a movie I didn't see in the 80s. I never actually heard of until I was a teenager in the 90s, and they actually showed this to us at school, and this is when I watched it. So I always associate it with as a school movie, because I think we read the book for an assignment or something, so they showed the movie or something. So I don't remember it very well. I just remember there was a lot of... wasn't Patrick Swayze, weren't there a lot of actors who would later become...
Ralph
like,
Macchio
famous?
was in it. Ralph
Yeah,
Macchio.
the Brat Pack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because, Mark, same thing here. They had us read it in English class, and then we watched the movie, and I remember nothing but Ponyboy getting his ass beat at that gang brawl.
He get messed up. He got his ass kicked.
Yeah.
And then, of course, "Do It for Johnny," one of the most iconic movie lines ever. "Do it for Johnny, man. But do it for Johnny." God, Matt Dillon.
Yeah. Yeah, and I gotta be honest, I don't really remember this movie. I did see it in the 80s, but it's probably been since the 80s since I've seen it, and since the 80s since I read the book. So I actually really don't really remember it much. I remember Ralph Macchio was in it, and a bunch of the Brat Pack were in it, but it's maybe it's one I should rewatch again. Go back and rewatch some of these 80s movies. Yeah.
Really, I would highly recommend going back and watching The Outsiders and Tex. Matt Dillon in both, so you kind of can guess. Although I don't remember, does he die at the end? I know he gets shot. I don't remember if he dies. It's probably been 25 years since I've seen Tex. It's another really good movie. Same author, I think. Same person who wrote the Outsiders book.
Hey, Josh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Yeah, I'm having technical difficulties, so I'm going to jump out and jump back in real quick. I'll just be
Okay. While you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and do my 10, and then hopefully by the time we cycle around, Mark will be back. Okay, so my number 10 is Rambo First Blood Part 2. I remember the first time I saw this, it was on HBO. I didn't get to see it in the theater, but on HBO. And it's kind of like you, Don, with RoboCop. It was just so gratuitously violent. And then, if I remember correctly, he blows up a helicopter with a bow and arrow. How could 80s Josh not love that movie? And then just, he goes to Vietnam to rescue some POWs who were never released. And then just when threatening the colonel or whoever it was at the prison camp, "I'm your worst nightmare." Oh my God! It's just probably for me the best Stallone movie that wasn't Rocky.
Makes sense. Definitely makes sense on that one. I mean, see, this is what I'm saying, Josh. You did not make this an easy task whatsoever.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, well, you're gonna have to see it.
Yeah, I know that's another one I haven't seen in 30 years. But it also is one. It falls in the category of ones that we had on VHS tape because my mom had HBO and we would just record all these things on VHS tape and just watch them over and over. And I remember watching. We're talking about Rambo, First Blood. Mark, that's Josh's team.
Oh right.
And I remember, First Blood Part 2, Rambo, First Blood Part 2. Yes. Yeah, but it's been a long time. In my adulthood, I'm not really into these gratuitously violent movies anymore, so it's hard to say that I would really appreciate it now. But I loved it, back in the '80s.
I will say, I do remember seeing this movie for the first time. We were in Ocean City for a vacation, and we got it on VHS. Oh, don't nasty words. So this is the first time I ever heard the F word. So that's what I remember this movie for. I don't remember any violence, blowing shit up. All I remember is the F word.
Okay, so I think Akton, it's back to you with number 9.
Okay, number 9. This is another one that I haven't seen in a long time, and it's on my list purely for nostalgia. But I can't imagine the top 10 '80s movies without this, because this was the '80s movie for me when it was the '80s. Another one we saw hundreds of times, and that is Ghostbusters. And I don't know. I have a lot of comedies on my list. I'm realizing, because I was just really into the comedies back in the day, and Ghostbusters was one. I remember when, again, we used to take vacations in Ocean City. Mark just mentioned Ocean City, Maryland, near where we grew up, and I remember we would always go to see a movie there at least once or twice during our week-long vacation. And I remember going to Ghostbusters and not wanting to see it. I wanted to see some other stupid kids movie or something. My parents were like, no, we're going to go see this. And I was grumpy about it. And then at the end of it, I was like, oh, that was amazing with the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man and all that. And then going back and rewatching it later as an adult and getting some of the jokes I didn't get when I was a 10-year-old kid. But this will always be a classic movie that I appreciated both as a kid and an adult. So have to put that on my list.
You know, I have a funny Ghostbusters story too from the first time I saw it. We were visiting my uncle and his family in Littletown, Ohio, and it had a one-screen movie theater and a drive-in theater. And the one-screen movie theater was playing Ghostbusters, and my cousin got scared, and we had to leave halfway through because he was afraid of the ghosts. And so we went and saw Who Framed Roger Rabbit at the drive-in instead. They were playing, even though I think Who Framed Roger Rabbit came out the year after, they were going at the same time. That's how small this town was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, actually, the scene with the ghost in the library with the old lady goes, shh, and then she turns into that scared the crap out of me when I was 10 years old. I was like, I literally jumped back in the theater.
We made it to the hotel with Slimer, and then we were like, the kids we got to go. I can't take this. I'm like, Jesus, come on.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit was a good one too.
Really enjoying that movie. We had to leave. Little shit.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to be the odd one out here, because I remember loving this movie as a kid. I absolutely loved it. I was like, Ghost. But then I watched it recently. I hadn't seen it for 10 years. So I watched it recently a few years ago, and I did not like it. I just didn't like it. It was okay. I didn't hate it, but this is a masterpiece. But if you're talking for nostalgia reasons, yeah, I can definitely see that, because I loved it as a kid as well. But I think it's one of those movies that doesn't quite hold up on a rewatch in the modern times. But that's just me.
Hold on, Mark, I would like to thank you. Now I don't get to be the spoiler for a movie loved by so many people.
Yeah, and as I said, I actually haven't. I've watched it as an adult, but I've been adult for 20 years, so I haven't watched it. I probably haven't watched it in 20 years. And again, a lot of the movies on my list are nostalgia, and I think Real Genius is the same way. If I watched that now, I would probably think it was a terrible movie. But it is more about the nostalgia and how I felt about the movie in the 80s. So I'm not even worried about how bad it is. I almost don't even want to watch it now because I don't want the nostalgia to be ruined. But for the 80s, to me, I can't think of the 80s without thinking of Ghostbusters. So regardless of how it holds up now, it's still on my list.
Fair enough.
Okay, so I think it's my turn.
Did we lose Josh and Anna?
Oh, wait.
I see them. I see Josh and Anna. Oh, they are.
I think they might be frozen.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I do think it's my turn right now, though. So
Okay.
Let's go ahead and they'll come back. I'm sure. Let's let Dom go.
So my number 9, and I'm pretty sure that I'm not going to have any agreement on this one whatsoever. Top 10 80s anything, but fuck it. Batman. That for me at the time, it was like, wow, we get to see a dark, gritty superhero. This wasn't 1960s Adam West Batman, which was the only Batman you had up until that time. He had the cool car, he had the hot girlfriend, he had the awesome gadgets, there was the Joker. Hey, and Josh and Anna are back.
Yeah, sorry about that. Our computer just took a giant dump again.
It's all good. I was just telling these guys that my number 9 is Batman, and I'm pretty sure no one else is gonna even think that it should be in anyone's top 10, but it's in mine. Damn it! Okay.
No, I don't think that. I don't think that's that outrageous. It's not in my top 10, but it was in strong consideration. It's one of the movies I was considering, so I don't think it's out there to put Batman in, especially since if Mark might remember that I had a Batman hat and like Batman comic book Batman. I was super into Batman when that came out. So, everything you said about it being and everything you said about it being a dark, gritty superhero movie, it was new at the time. Totally respectable. I think to have Batman on there. That's
and I agree. I'll echo that sentiment. I don't think it's a bad choice at all. In fact, I do think it holds up as one of the best Batman movies. Of course, you know me, I'm not a huge fan of the Nolan ones, but I think it is it's not on my top 10, but it is something that I think should be talked about as one of the best 80s movies.
We're talking about Batman 1989, I assume, with Michael Keaton?
Correct.
Yes. Yes.
With the classic
in the theater and being blown away. But that's one where I would say that it might not hold up quite as well now as it did, seeing it in 1989.
Well, I will say that I liked.
I don't think,
Yeah, I will say that I like Batman Returns better, but that was the 90s technically.
Honestly, I was not a fan of Batman Returns. I mean, small tangent, very small tangent. I think that, unfortunately, Batman Returns is a product of when you have great success, when the studio is in control of what the director is allowed to do. And then Batman Returns is what happens when the director he did a great job on the first one, and the studio's like, all right, fine, and do your thing. And sometimes Tim Burton doing his thing, I don't think is the best for established products.
I definitely see where you're coming from, Don. You did go a bit crazy.
Batman made a huge mistake.
Yeah, but I still prefer it, but I definitely can see that point of view.
So I think we're up to your number 9 now, right, Mark?
Okay, yep. So my number 9. Okay, so this is the only film on my list that is not science fiction. I mean, if I did like a top 90s or top 2000s, actually there would be only like most of them wouldn't be science fiction, but something about the 80s. The 80s was just a good decade for science fiction, so it rolls most of my top 10. But no, number 9 is the only non-science fiction, and it's The Naked Gun. And I had a hard time deciding to go through either The Naked Gun or Airplane, but The Naked Gun sort of just edges it out for me because I think Airplane's a bit too dated, where I think The Naked Gun holds up even. And it was the funniest movie. I actually prefer 2.5, but again, that's a 90s movies. We're doing 80s. And I still think Naked Gun is awesome. Like the whole, baseball stadium scene and stuff where it's like, I must kill the queen. And with Ricardo Montalban as the villain, come on. It was just a good classic comedy.
Whatever. And let's not forget Frank Drebin totally screwing up the national anthem as Enrico Palazzo.
Yeah, absolutely.
Enrico Palazzo.
And then he gets it last night.